Single dad lost a bet and had to live with an obese girl. What happened next changed everything. He thought it was just a stupid bet. A joke between friends over a football game and a few too many sodas on a Friday night. But 30 days later, Marcus would be standing in his kitchen at 6 a.m., crying over a plate of pancakes. Not from sadness, but from the kind of gratitude that sneaks up on you when you least expect it. Sometimes the things we resist the most are the very things we need. And sometimes, kindness doesn't arrive wrapped in a bow. Sometimes it shows up at your front door carrying 2 suitcases and a shy smile. If stories like this one move you, you're in the right place. Here at Heartfelt Moments, we share real, emotional stories about everyday people doing extraordinary things. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and drop a comment below telling us about a time a stranger's kindness surprised you. Now, let's get into the story. Marcus Delaney was a 38-year-old single dad living in Columbus, Ohio, raising his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, on his own. His wife had passed away 3 years earlier from a sudden illness, and since then, Marcus had been running on autopilot: work, school pickup, dinner, bedtime, repeat. He was a good man, but grief had made him guarded. He kept his circle small and his walls high. The bet happened at his buddy Derek's house during a playoff game. Derek's cousin, Claire, needed a place to stay for 30 days while her apartment was being renovated. She'd just moved to Columbus for a new job and didn't know anyone in the city. Derek tried everything to find her somewhere to go, and in a moment of competitive bravado, Marcus joked, "If the Browns lose this game, I'll let her stay at my place." Everyone laughed. Nobody thought the Browns would lose. The Browns lost. Marcus showed up at Derek's door the next Saturday morning with the smallest, most forced smile you've ever seen. And there was Claire, 28 years old, soft-spoken, with warm brown eyes and a nervous laugh. She was a bigger woman, and Marcus noticed immediately the way she seemed to brace herself when she walked in, like she was already apologizing for taking up space. He felt a small pang of guilt about that, though he pushed it aside. The first few days were awkward. Marcus was polite but distant. He set ground rules. He kept to himself. Lily, however, had absolutely no interest in being distant. On day 2, she marched up to Claire, handed her a crayon drawing of a butterfly, and said, "This is for you because you look like you need a friend." Claire laughed, a real laugh this time, and from that moment, something began to shift. Lily started asking Claire to help with homework. Then with puzzles. Then with bedtime stories. Claire had a gift for voices and characters, and Lily would shriek with delight every time she narrated a new chapter. Marcus would stand in the hallway and listen, and for the first time in 3 years, his home felt full again. He started noticing other things about Claire too. She woke up early and quietly made coffee without being asked. She left kind notes on the refrigerator, little things like, "Hope your meeting goes well today." When Lily got a cold, Claire sat with her for hours watching cartoons and making soup from scratch. She never complained. She never made herself the center of anything. She just gave, quietly and consistently, like it was the most natural thing in the world. One night, about 2 weeks in, Marcus came home from a brutal day at work to find dinner on the table and Lily already bathed and in her pajamas. Claire was washing dishes, humming softly to herself. He stood in the doorway and felt something crack open in his chest, not in a painful way, but in the way a window cracks open on the first warm day of spring. "Claire," he said quietly. She turned around. "Thank you. For all of this. For being so good to my daughter." She dried her hands and looked at him with those warm eyes. "She's easy to love, Marcus. You both are." He didn't know what to do with that, so he just nodded and helped her finish the dishes. But that night, after Lily was asleep, they sat on the porch and talked for 2 hours. Really talked. She told him about growing up being teased for her weight, about learning to lead with kindness because it was the only armor that never let her down. He told her about his wife, about how grief had made him feel like a shell of himself, about how scared he was of letting people in again. She listened to every word without flinching. By the time the 30 days were up, Marcus didn't want her to leave. And he told her so. Not in a dramatic way. Just honestly, the way people speak when they've stopped pretending. Claire stayed. Not because of a bet this time, but because she'd built a home inside that little family without even trying. A year later, she and Marcus were dating. 2 years after that, Lily stood as flower girl at their wedding, wearing a yellow dress and grinning like she'd known all along. Marcus says now that losing that bet was the best thing that ever happened to him. But the real truth is simpler than that. Claire's kindness was so consistent, so generous, so utterly without condition, that it healed something in him he didn't even know was broken. That's what kindness does. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for perfect timing or a perfect person. It just shows up, again and again, until the walls come down and the light finally gets in. So wherever you are today, be the person who shows up with kindness. You never know whose heart you might be saving.